the Sendai Framework Monitor tool activity, which will be starting about now, and then 15 minutes for discussion. And when we finish, the breakout room will close automatically. And I'd like to invite everyone to just make their way back to the session, to the main plenary session. Okay, now let's start. This is the Polynesian room, as I mentioned, and today we'll be using the National Emergency Management Office Situation Report number 4 that Kunal mentioned, that the materials to be downloaded from the link. And this activity will be focusing on using the Sendai Framework monitoring data, which is a management tool that is used to track the progress in implementing the 7 targets for the Sendai Framework. And the target that is given to us today is target B. And target B is to substantially reduce the number of affected people globally by 2030. So B1 is a compound target. So if we enter all the data from B2 to B5, it will automatically modify the data and enter in B1. So therefore, let's move on to B2. I hope everyone has the report in front of them, because we will be using them to get those data to enter into this one. Now back to our activity. B-2 is the number of injured or ill people attributed to disaster. Now, a definition for this is people suffering of injured or ill is people suffering from new or exacerbated physical or psychological harm as a result of a disaster. And I'd like all of you to just go through the report. And through the report, does anyone find any data there regarding to any injured or ill in Tonga from the report? I'm sure you can find this. I'm sure you can find this data. In the first page, there would be a summary of the situation report on the right-hand side. If anyone has the answer, just enter it into the chat, or you can raise your hand, and we're most welcome. So the question is that we're on right now is in terms of the number of injured or ill people. And our situation report is the situation report on Tropical Cyclone Harold. From the Tropical Cyclone Harold, how many people lost their life how many people were injured or ill as a result of Tropical Cyclone Harold from the report? And I'll just give it a few seconds to the audience. Just checking if everyone got the report, and if you could just go through the live chat. Timothy provided the link for this report, and yes. Hi, for those tuning in about now, tuning in, we're currently working through familiarizing with data entry into the Sendai Framework Monitor. And our question that is we're currently looking for is B2, which is the number B-2, which is the number of ill or injured people. And I have invited all of you, if you could find in your report the situation report of Tropical Cyclone Harold. Were there any injuries or ill people as a result of Tropical Cyclone Harold? And if there is, and how many were there? And if there were not, and just report, just kindly enter it into the chat, or just raise your hand or enter. The floor is open to the participants. Thank you, Nicolette. Millie, could you enter? So, participant has provided that there were no deaths or injuries, and in that case, I'd like to just enter 0. There, ma'am. Thank you very much. And the sources, and the source for this, just like to ask the participant, what will be the source for this information? Yes, although it is the situation report, but yeah, would that be correct? It is from the situation report? Yes. Well, I'd just like to enter the source for this information, which is National Emergency Management Office. Situation report number 4. TC Harold. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next target, which is our next target is B-3, which is the number of people whose damaged dwellings were attributed to disaster. And I'd like to just make a distinction and a definition in this case, is the number of its damaged dwellings. So these are houses that suffered minor or major damage, but can still be lived in and is still habitable. Not completely destroyed, not completely damaged, but just minor or major. And I'd just like to invite all of you to just go through our report. And could you identify whether there were any damage or minor or major damaged houses, and how many were there? Just a guide, the situation report, again, on the right-hand side of the first page, there's a summary there. And if you could just go through the report on... okay. I've just been informed that we had 2 minutes, but that is fine. So, yes, just go through our report. Again, the target for today, the target right now is B-3, which is the number of people whose damaged dwellings were attributed to disaster. If you just go through your activities, through your report, is there any report that's saying of the number of houses that were damaged, that suffered minor or major damage? Not completely destroyed or completely damaged, just minor or major damage. And again, I invite you to just enter through the live chat or just through through the chat function. Yes, just a brief background on Tonga. So Tonga has a few number of major island groups. So there's Ewa, Tongatapu, and also the Niuas and Wava'u. And in the report, there will be we'll show this these different major island groups. But again, back to our question, which is the number of damaged dwellings. From the report, have anyone identified the number of damaged dwellings that were attributed to Tropical Cyclone Harold?
Hi, Samisoni. There's a couple numbers in the chat box there on the number of damaged dwellings. And the facilitator is asking if maybe we can move on to the discussion.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, yes, thank you to our participant for entering the information. And I'm sorry that we don't have a lot of time, but this was a great opportunity for us to just familiarize ourselves with the Sendai Framework monitoring tool. And with that case, we will move on to our next activity, which is the discussions. And I just like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for all of your contribution. And the next activity that we're moving on is the group discussions. And I will be sharing my screen now. Bear with me for a few minutes. Okay. Just like to ask the participant whether they can see my screen about now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, again, thank you all for your active participation in our exercise. Now, that was an activity on using the management tool to track the progress of the Sendai framework, or using the Sendai framework monitoring tool. Now, let's discuss the option of data collection in the region. So the region that let's just go with in the region. And so we have had a discussion and reflection from the USP students of the coastal disaster risk reduction for resilience, and these were the points that they have that they brought up. So I'd like you all to bear in mind a question of why is data important in terms of disaster risk reduction, and why do we need it, and what are the opportunities of data collection? And so coming back to the reflection of the USP students, so the first point that they had brought up was incorporating Sendai framework monitoring into the policies and regulation in the NDMO and the NEMO. So those are the National Designated Management Offices or the National Emergency Management Offices. And they came up with this point as incorporating the Sendai framework, this tool, into the policies and the regulation would mandate the responsibilities and as well as resources. Most governments have very limited fundings, and so having this incorporated into these regulations and these policies not only mandates human resources, we can also mandate financial resources, which is very in dire need. And also, they have discussed as having defined roles and responsibilities. Who does what and who collects which one. And the second point is collaborate with ministries and civil societies. As we know that different ministries and different organizations handle different data, and disaster risk is is it's a multi-sectorial issue. A disaster is a multi-sectorial issue. So we need these different ministries and these different organizations to come together and collaborate. In terms to close off the data gaps, or even provide some of the data that they had. And the third point is establishing a disaster data collection function in every ministry. So these ministries, as I have mentioned before, so different ministries have different roles, such as the Ministry of Agriculture. They would have data in terms of livestock or agricultural produce losses in terms of when a disaster hits. So we need to have a data collection function in this ministry so they collect these type of data. And moreover is the encouraged teamwork within ministries. As I mentioned, that disaster risk is not just the function of the NEMO, or that's just their responsibility. No, this is a whole of country. It should be a holistic approach in terms to addressing disaster management. And lastly is establishing a system of social and a online system and social media group. Yes, with the situation of the COVID, obviously travel restriction is in place, and we are turning more and more into the virtual platform in order to share data. But then again, a question arises from this issue is we have more accessible and more data available, but is this data validated? How sure are we of the quality of these data? And these are just a reflection that these are just some of the many opportunities that we can have from data collection in the region. And now I'd like to before I open the floor, I'd like to pass on the opportunity to our colleague Maureen from the NEMO Tonga to just give us a brief to briefly talk about what is the progress of NEMO in incorporating Sendai framework into the policies and regulation in NEMO. And yes, over to you, Maureen.
Sorry, Samisoni, just 4 minutes left. Yeah, just 4 minutes left. And there's also a question in the chat box. But yeah, over to Maureen.
Bulabinaka and Malolele. My name's Maureen Borolongatambu. I'm here with NEMO. Thank you very much, Samisoni, for highlighting the opportunities of data collection in the region. Here in Tonga, we're currently reviewing our disaster management bill. It's currently known as the Emergency Management Act. And with this review, we are actually broadening it. And part of that will also be to include data and improve our data systems here. As Samisoni and Mesaki said, there's also the challenge of collecting that data. So we've also got what some of you might know as the cluster system. So we'll hope to strengthen our data collection before an event and then also during the event. The example we used was the situation report there to collect the data. The other challenge, as you would have seen from that situation report, is collecting the data and disaggregating it. So it's getting more of the details around it, working closer with our partners, with the whole government approach, but also with our NGO sector who also collect quite a bit of data. So it is exciting times, but there's still the challenges that we need to get through. And once it's legislated, it will become a priority because everyone does collect data at the moment. It's just a matter of trying to collect the data that's relevant for us at that particular time. I'll open it up back to Samisoni, and I see there's some questions, and thank you again.
Hello, Maureen. Again, when we have you, I'd like you to just, if you could address the question that is provided by Simeone. Does Tonga have a data damage assessment template that facilitates data collection from affected areas, and it automatically feeds into the SFM for Tonga?
That's an excellent question. Hello, Simeone. So currently, we have just reviewed our initial damage assessment process. And with that, we do have a template, but we're actually going to change that and update that as well. Again, similar to how your question in terms of how it automatically feeds into the Sendai monitor, we've developed a system, currently just in Excel, as to the best way forward into how we can collect that information, particularly what's in the Sendai framework, and put that into the Kobo box so it does automatically feed into it. So
Yo, are you there? Yo?